What's up, everybody? Welcome to Among the Fence. My name is Aaron. Today we're checking out the new album Incarnation by the Australian Metalcore band In Heart's Wake. They formed in 2006, yet this is only their sixth studio album, so they definitely prefer quality over quantity. Their debut album, Divination, came out in 2012, and to me, it was ahead of its time. The clean vocals are some of the best, even by today's standards. And then they came out with their second studio album, Earthwalkers, which expanded on Divinations. They didn't really bring anything new to their sound, but at the same time, I don't think they really needed to. They added more breakdowns in, and it definitely felt more focused than Divination, but things definitely felt a lot drier on their third release, Skydancer, which again, didn't really bring anything new to the table. But by this time, their charm had definitely worn off, and that would basically be the story for their fourth studio album, Arc, which felt like a revisit to Divination, which it was just not really that exciting anymore. They basically kept making the same album over and over and over again. However, their last album, Kalyuga, I believe that's how it's pronounced, was definitely different. They added a lot of different sounds, incorporated a lot of different techniques and synths and just different effects, which pretty much all could be heard on the intro track to the album. Their songwriting style changed a lot as well. Some people didn't really care that much for it, while I feel like others were just glad to hear them not release the same album again for the fifth time in a row. For me, I personally didn't care for it just because it had a lot more radio play qualities within it. It made me feel kind of meh when I heard that they're dropping a new album, not really knowing what direction they were going to be going in. The first single they released for this album, titled Hollow Bone, it came out 13 days after they announced the departure of clean vocalist and bassist Kyle Eric, which I feel like is, I don't know, at the time, it made it feel like this was kind of the death of In Heart's Wake because of the fact that he was such a prominent person within the band, not only in his songwriting, but also in his vocals, because the clean vocals to me is what really sold me on this band, which is weird because I don't even really like clean vocals within my metalcore, so I feel like that says a lot for him. Hollow Bone is actually based on Kyle's departure. He was one of the first band members, and he'd been there pretty much since the beginning, and he's no longer there. So this is kind of like the band's anthem in saying that we're still going to continue, we're always going to be around. And honestly, I wasn't really expecting too much from this song given the hook, but I gotta say, it was pretty sick. The verses are super aggressive, it has a cool riff. The chorus was just okay, definitely missing the clean vocals. The chanty vocals weren't really doing it for me. However, the post-chorus and verse 2 is when the song really comes alive, especially once we get to the breakdown. Then they dropped another single titled Orphan, which is one of the most chaotic songs I feel like this band has ever written. It reminds me a lot of something that The Prodigy would write due to just the drums and the overall tempo and the full, it's just a continuous pace. It never lets up. And even though things are constantly changing, I feel like the drum pattern and just the tempo is almost like a constant. And this song is about the rise of technology and the mass production just for the sake of profit, even though it's kind of jeopardizing our futures and our children's futures. There's a lot going on in the song, especially like I said, the drums create this very frantic pace, and the guitar gives a sense of emergency with its alarming sounds. Not really what you would expect from a single, but to me it turns out that this is one of my favorite songs they've done. And I think it's one of the best songs on the album. And it does work pretty well as a single too, because it shows fans that they're doing something different. They're changing up their writing style, incorporating different sounds, and creating different atmospheres. And I feel like it's worked out very well on this one. They followed up with the next single, The Flood, which is about a flood that occurred in 2022 in Australia, putting towns under 2 stories of water. This one mixes old school sounds with their newer stuff. I feel like they incorporate it very well. Winston absolutely kills it in verse 2 and the bridge, but I don't really care for his vocals going into the final chorus. He does that kind of Parkway Drive vocal fry, really intense build-up thing that he does in like every single Parkway Drive song now, and I didn't really care for it that much, but overall I still felt like this was a solid track. The opening track, Spitting Nails, sets the tone for this album. The riff is really good, but does get kind of lost in the production. The drums do a lot to make this song better and stand out more, along with the vocal layering, which I feel like they did just right. I love the concept of the song Gen Doom, but I don't really care that much about its execution. It's about future generations being slaves to technology. Mainly, I have issues with the robotic voice mixed with the music. I don't know, it just sounds very dated. The music has a very 90s sound, and it just, I don't know. I feel like it works, but at the same time, it feels kind of old. The breakdown is great, but I feel like the moments that aren't really that engaging throughout the song make the song feel 2 times longer than it really is, making you want to skip it more often than not. Then we have the song Shishigamj, which has a very generic build-up going into the verse, making it feel very predictable. The cleans in the chorus are refreshing. They're not nearly as good as they used to be, admittedly. And the build-up going into the breakdown was just all right. This song just felt very formulaic. It felt like they were playing it safe. And even though they took some different chances on other songs, some songs they still just kind of did whatever, they didn't really experiment too much. The song Tyrant continues that same kind of sound. The chorus is absolutely sick. It reminds me of like old school Bleed From Within, something you would hear off of their album Fracture. Maybe it just has so much grit to it. And they do a really good job of keeping the pace going through the build-up going into the breakdown, where at this point in the album, they've been kind of doing the same thing and it becomes very predictable, kind of boring. This song is definitely made for a moshing crowd, definitely a live performance. And to me, that usually doesn't always translate well. So I'm kind of shocked that I enjoyed this song, because it does sound so good when you're just listening to it on your speakers at home. It doesn't become something that you want to skip after multiple listens due to the fact that it just has a live energy to it. And thankfully, they put the same amount of effort into the song Feeding the Dead, which is one of the slower songs, I guess you could say, on the album. The pre-chorus is insanely good, and the chorus doesn't let up either. The dips in the verse just make everything hit so much harder. I would say this song is also up there with being one of the best songs on this album. Then we have the song Shishigamj, which is about an honorary society at the University of Michigan. The song features For Fallen Dreams. The vocals and the verse aren't always the best, but if you focus on the riff, it definitely helps. It gets better as the song goes on, but it does have its cringy moments, like the bridge. I feel like it could have just, been done differently. The vocals just aren't there. The music is kind of boring, but at the same time, I feel like the cringe is a little intentional. Then we have the song Shell Shock, which has a more traditional metalcore feel to it, but I feel like they just didn't pull it off quite as well as they could. The clean vocals in the verse just don't really hit as well as they used to, given the fact that Kyle isn't doing them anymore. He just doesn't have that unique vocal tone. The breakdown is really gnarly though, very unexpected, and I feel like that's what makes this song something that you want to keep going back to. And that brings us to the phenomenal closing track, Transmission, which is a throwback to their first couple albums. The lead guitar melody is absolutely beautiful throughout this. The vocals are mixed perfectly with it. The rhythm is beautiful. This is easily my favorite song on this record. It gave me goosebumps the first time and the second time and the third time, and it just keeps going. It's the longest song on this album. It's got a lot of twists and turns. You don't really know what to expect. The first time I heard this song, I was completely blown away. I thought that it sent me over to like a different album or a different song on accident when I was listening to it on Spotify. Especially the insanely heavy pre-chorus stands out so much. This reminds me a lot of something you would hear off of like Counterparts, their album Nothing Left to Love, something around there, especially just the emotional weight of it. This album is so much better than I expected. Sure, there's some songs that missed the mark, but the songs that didn't miss the mark actually hit it, and hit it very hard. I used to love this band, but then they started to become more mainstream, and there are some mainstream elements on here, some Octane Core stuff, but even that isn't really a complete turnoff. And I feel like the fact that I used to love this band and I fell out of love with them, and now this album made me fall back in love with them again. I can't think of another band that's done that. Most bands that kiss their old ways goodbye and go to radio rock, it's pretty much it. But I feel like In Heart's Wake definitely reincarnated themselves with this album, Reincarnation. So with all that said, I gotta give Reincarnation by In Heart's Wake a 8.3 out of 10. But I want to know what you guys think. Leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of Incarnation. Let me know what you rate it and what your favorite song is and why it is the closing track, Transmissions. And also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. It helps out so much with YouTube's algorithm. It'll keep my videos popping up in your recommended feed on YouTube if that's what you want. And if you want to continue to support me even further, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon. And that way you don't miss out on any of my future videos. YouTube will notify you at least occasionally. And also, just thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me talk about music. I appreciate you guys constantly coming back. Even my videos, like maybe this one, which aren't on super popular bands, I still got a lot of my subscribers who just constantly come back to this and watch. I just appreciate it so much. I never thought that I would have so many people interested in what I have to say about music and starting conversations on it. So yeah, I thank you guys so much for coming around and having conversations about music, because that's what this whole channel is about. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day or night whenever you have me watching this, and I'll talk to you guys next time.